all of a sudden, weird things happen. Michael Shannon considering return to Zod for Supergirl. Yeah, not Superman. But anyway, reading this brief article from Cosmic Book News, Michael Shannon considers a return to the Zod role when it's brought up to the actor that a Supergirl movie might be happening. Shannon, of course, played Zod in Man of Steel, and there was some amount of controversy because Superman ends up being forced to kill him in order to save lives. So, he's dead. How's he come back? Well, if there's going to be a reboot, and it sounds like it is that they're going to do that, I suppose you could just say that Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman and, of course, Justice League never happened. So, then it's pretty easy, he's alive. Yeah, they've been talking about a Supergirl movie for quite some time, and I'm like, oh, geez, after what they did with the TV show, I don't know. Had they had a trilogy of Superman films done at this point, and then they want to split off to the Supergirl story, that would have been good, and you could have Henry Cavill Superman handed off to whatever actress they hired for the role. But I still don't know that it's a guarantee that Henry Cavill will be Superman again. And I know he said he's interested in the role and all that. Well, he can be interested in all he wants, but if the new regime, which apparently will be Bad Robot, is not interested in him, then that's that. So I'm not sure why they would bother with having Michael Shannon come back as Zod in a Supergirl film if they're wanting to just completely forget about the whole Cavill Snyder era and all that. But anyway, Michael Shannon was asked about a potential return for a Supergirl movie. And apparently he said, "Wow, that's interesting. I swear to God, I am not kidding. You are breaking this news to me. I will have to look into that. Zod again? I don't know. It's been a while. I'm a little older and creakier now. I'm not sure I could do all the moves." Michael Shannon, big fan of Zack Snyder. Well, is WB a big fan of Zack Snyder? Shannon continues with mention of director Zack Snyder, where Shannon seems to shed doubt on returning to Zod other than if Zack Snyder is involved with Supergirl. Also, I have to say in complete and utter seriousness that I just loved working with Zack Snyder, and that was a big part of it for me. I don't know who's making this Supergirl movie, but I really treasure that experience with Zack. He's a hell of a guy. The details on the Supergirl movie were first revealed almost 2 years ago, with it said that WB was looking to do some sort of Superman reboot with Supergirl. It doesn't seem if Zack Snyder's involved. Yeah, at the time it wouldn't, but look, if this Snyder Cut deal is actually released on HBO Max, and it has a huge interest in it, that certainly could change things. I mean, the only excitement other than, Aquaman and Wonder Woman for their DCEU movies is that, is, wait, well, let's see what that was, the thing about Zack Snyder's movies, and Man of Steel to a lesser extent, is that they're flawed movies. There's plot points in there that most people just really have a serious problem with. With Man of Steel, it's the whole story with Jonathan Kent, his attitude, which does play into the original story about him wanting Clark to be secretive and not show his powers and that sort of thing, but to the point that he suggests you should let people die. That was a bit strong, but more importantly is his death. It lacks all credibility that Clark would just sit there and watch it happen. He wouldn't do that. He would have saved his father before he even realized he had done it. And in the blink of an eye, no one would have really known what they just saw. There's a tornado and everything. I wouldn't. So they wanted Jonathan Kent to die, but they didn't just want him to die of a heart attack like in the Christopher Reeve movie. So they're trying to think of another way for him to die. So Superman can be, heartbroken and all that. But that scene, that in and of itself, is pretty bad. The death of Zod and all that, I saw it as this is a freshman superhero. He's not there yet, and these are the choices he's had. A fully mature Superman would figure out another way to do that. But it made sense within the context of the world presented in Man of Steel, so it never really bothered me. It apparently bothers Mr. McCloyne here, as he says, I've always thought that Superman never should have killed Zod in Man of Steel, and that Zod should have somehow survived. Of course, he's thinking of Zod would be a good recurring villain for a series of Superman films, and all of that. And he says, he could have brought in Zod to, a connection to the Brainiac story. Yeah, that's true. That would have been a cool thing, because Zod's from the city of Kandor, which Brainiac stole and shrunk and stuck in a bottle on his ship. That whole story would be a cool thing to explore on screen, because all you ever see is Superman fighting Zod or Superman fighting Lex Luthor, and that's it. So Brainiac never gets to appear, and certainly a Brainiac film would have been, I would have thought it would have been a no-brainer, and maybe that was in the works, but it just all came crashing down. Batman vs. Superman, of course, is cool to look at. It has a lot of great scenes, but it has a lot of scenes that don't really connect, don't make sense. It's like the cool scene of the Batmobile and all that, but it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of a dumb thing that happens there, within the plot about the kryptonite and all that. And other aspects of it. Plus, it's a forced film trying to make the DC universe just happen in one film, rather than having these separate films that are loosely connected, and then you have your big, come together with a Justice League film or something like that. But they were rushing everything way too much. When you had the standalone films, they're superior, but the people act like they just should be standalone films, and they mystified the shared universe. No, you can have your shared universe, which is how the DC comic books are. They have been for decades. That's how that world it works. But you have a strong film like Wonder Woman and an Aquaman, and they live in the same world. There's little teases here and there. You toss an Easter egg there too within it. And then later on, you can come up with they come together, and all that. And maybe you can work off what happened in those films to make a combined film later, not at the beginning. And it just doesn't come together. It doesn't work quite right. And, that was the biggest flaw for, Batman versus Superman. I'm not going to get into Batman being brutal and all that. That if you paid attention, it's explained that is on display in that film. He's a broken man. Robin is dead. He's at the end of his rope. And the ideals of Superman brings him back to the superhero world. That was the point of the film. But there again, I guess that's another flaw in it, that it doesn't quite deliver. But I would have thought there was enough there to get that across about the sort of really psychosis that Batman is in. Because the only way that works is that he gets that easily fooled by Lex Luthor. Now, Lex Luthor is a formidable, brain there, if you will. But still, Batman vs. Superman, I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it. The ultimate cut, not the theatrical one. But yeah, it is a flawed film. And does it deserve the massive hatred it gets on? Well, in some cases, no. But when you're trying to build this thing, and then you had kind of a lukewarm reception to Man of Steel, then you follow it with Batman vs. Superman. Yeah, I think Man of Steel 2 would have been the better route, and then work on a Batman movie, and then they come together. Come together. And that's how that works. He says, well, we don't want to copy Marvel. Well, it's just a step. It's not that big of a deal. So forget about Marvel. And let your characters breathe. Anyway, so this is just Michael Shannon saying he's open to the role, which is kind of surprising because he didn't seem to be all that gung-ho about it at the time. And he kind of talked about, I don't want to wear one of those stupid outfits and all that. And yet he's talking about he really enjoyed his experience with Zack Snyder. So some of this is are things lining up between Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers again. Are they coming back? Are they coming together? And there might be new projects for them. I don't know how much. I guess and I'm one of these that not all that enthused about, looking at the metrics of social media mentions. But of course, Snyder Cut gets an awful lot of mentions and all that. And that's a deliberate campaign on people. I've done it myself. People just want to see the damn thing, Why is that too much to ask? And, but as the idea that, oh, well, then have Snyder come back and work on some films. As far as him being the architect of a whole DC universe thing, I don't think so. And I don't even think that was his intention. He seemed to mention he had 5 films in mind. And then when that story was over, he was done. And what Warner Brothers wants to do after the fact is their business. But still, so it seems like a bit of a long shot here that Michael Shannon would return as Zod, with Zack Snyder. But I don't know. But the way this comes across, it's just him talking about, he would be interested in coming back to the role, for, Zack Snyder. But I don't think there's any mention of Zack Snyder being involved in the Supergirl film. But I don't know what's going on. You never know if this is just him just talking to somebody and saying, I wouldn't necessarily immediately say no, if offered. But the idea that is there any actual things going on about a Supergirl film and wanting Zod to be in it? I'm not so sure about that. But still, it's an interesting little tidbit. Every now and then you get these little rumblings that something may be in the works for a return to the Superman world of films. And hopefully it's Cavill, and we'll see who gets cast as Supergirl and all of that. And then they're off to the races again, and we'll have to see what happens. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you, most notably my comic book Night over at indieplanet.com. Yeah. You can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at radiomistress.com, and you can also watch my videos over at BitChute.